Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving deep today into a life that's, well, it's absolutely central to some foundational stories, but um, maybe often seen through the giants around him, his famous father, his famous sons. We're talking about Isaac.
That's right. And for this deep dive, we're drawing directly from sources rooted in the Holy Bible's account of Isaac's really quite remarkable life.
Yeah, and our mission really is to pull out those key moments, the defining details, maybe some things you haven't thought about, and really get a feel for the unique, quiet strength he had.
Absolutely.
It really
Just
seemed.
quite a journey, an extraordinary birth for starters. Then that huge test of faith on a mountain, which most people know, maybe not all the details.
Right.
Then there's this incredible matchmaking story, serious family drama, and a legacy built on, well, maybe less flash, but real persistence.
So where do we even kick off with Isaac? His name seems like the obvious place. Laughter.
It really does. It captures just the sheer disbelief around his birth.
Yeah.
The sources tell us Abraham was 100
100 years old.
and Sarah was 90 when God promised them a child. I mean, it wasn't just unlikely. It was, well, miraculous seems the only word. An extraordinary start.
Totally incredible. And here's something the sources really point out as unique. Isaac, apparently the very first person ever circumcised at just 8 days old.
Yeah, think about that contrast. His father, Abraham, was 99. His brother, Ishmael, was 13 when they were circumcised. So this timing, it sets Isaac apart right away.
It really speaks to his identity, doesn't it? From day one.
Exactly. He grew up knowing he wasn't just any child. He was chosen, specifically chosen to carry on Abraham's mission, teaching about God. The sources call him a holy soul.
A holy soul.
And another significant point,
Yeah.
he never left the promised sacred land. Unlike Abraham, unlike Jacob later on, he stayed focused. The sources say he spent his days connecting himself.
Connecting himself. What exactly does that imply based on the text?
It suggests this deep internal focus, devotion, prayer, really steeping himself in divine wisdom. While others journeyed outward, Isaac's journey seems much more inward, rooted right there in the sacred land.
That paints a really powerful picture of his early years. Okay, let's shift to what is, well, arguably the most famous, maybe the most intense event tied to Isaac, Mount Moriah. God telling Abraham to offer Isaac as a sacrifice.
And the crucial detail here, the one that often gets glossed over, is Isaac's age. The sources are clear. He was 37 years old.
37, not a child.
Not at all. He wasn't some little kid being led along unaware.
That completely changes the dynamic, doesn't it? The whole journey up the mountain becomes this incredible act of trust. Isaac trusting his father, sure, but also Abraham's just absolute trust in God.
And that image, Isaac, a grown man, carrying the wood for his own offering.
Yeah.
And asking that question, Father, where's the lamb? So simple, but wow.
And Abraham's reply, God will provide. It's just packed with faith.
Right. And the sources emphasize Isaac wasn't just passively going along. He understood. He trusted the divine command given to his father. It was about faith for both of them, not about the actual act in the end.
And the resolution, it comes right at the last possible second. An angel calls out, stops Abraham.
And then there's the ram, caught in the thicket,
Yeah.
provided, just as Abraham believed. A powerful, powerful moment.
So after that intense experience, what comes next for Isaac? Marriage, right? That's the next big chapter.
Yes, finding a wife. And again, it's not straightforward. Abraham, getting older now, had very specific ideas.
He wanted someone from his own family line, sharing their values. Importantly, someone who'd come to the promised land, not take Isaac away from it.
So he sends his most trusted servant, Eleazar, on this really important mission. Off he goes with 10 camels.
10 camels loaded with gifts.
Loaded with gifts, exactly. A long trip back to Abraham's relatives in Nahor.
And Eleazar gets to the town, well, the usual meeting spot, and he prays this very specific prayer. He asks God for a sign.
A really clear sign. The woman who not only gives him water when he asks, but then volunteers, unprompted, to water all 10 of his camels.
Mm-hmm.
She's the one.
And bam, before he even finishes praying, Rebecca shows up.
The sources describe her as, full of energy, kindness. She gives him a drink straight away. And then, just like the prayer, she offers to draw water for all 10 camels.
Okay, pause on that. 10 thirsty camels. That's a lot of water. Yeah. This wasn't just a small courtesy.
No way. The sources really emphasize this. A massive act of kindness, generosity, hard work too. It was like the clearest sign possible.
Eleazar must have been floored.
Totally. He gives her gifts right then, gold bracelets, a nose ring, asks about her family. And when he finds out she's the granddaughter of Abraham's brother Nahor, well, that sealed it. Divine intervention, the texts call it.
So he goes to her family, meets her father Bethuel, her brother Laban, tells them the whole story, how this was clearly God's hand at work.
And initially, they agree. They say, this is from God.
But then a twist. The sources mention Bethuel apparently had second thoughts, maybe saw the expensive gifts.
Yeah, it's a dramatic detail. Apparently, he planned to poison Eliezer to keep the stuff and stop the marriage.
Whoa. But divine intervention again?
That's what the sources say. An angel supposedly switched the plates, and Bethuel ended up poisoned instead.
Okay, well, even after that, Laban and Rebekah's mother try to delay things. Let her stay a few more days.
But Eliezer insists. Time is crucial. So they ask Rebekah directly.
Will you go with this man? And her answer.
Just 2 words, incredibly powerful. I will go. Think about that faith. Going off to marry someone she's never seen, based purely on this sign and Eliezer's story. Real courage.
So she travels back. When they get near home, Isaac is out in the field, meditating, praying, the texts say.
Rebekah sees him, asks Eliezer who it is. When she finds out it's Isaac, she covers herself with a veil, a sign of modesty, respect.
And then Isaac brings her into his mother Sarah's tent, which is symbolic, right? Taking her place as the matriarch.
Absolutely, and something beautiful happens right away, according to the sources. Remember those 3 miracles associated with Sarah's tent?
The Sabbath candles, the dough, the cloud of glory.
Yes. They apparently stopped when Sarah died, but the moment Rebekah entered the tent, they resumed.
Wow, what a testament to her. But even with that blessing, life wasn't immediately easy. They faced a big challenge. Infertility.
Right. 20 years they were married without children. 20 years.
How did they handle that?
The sources say they prayed a lot. Specifically, it mentions Isaac started the practice of afternoon prayers during this period, praying intensely for a child.
And after 2 decades, finally, God answers. Rebekah becomes pregnant with twins.
But the pregnancy itself was really tough. Rebekah felt this intense struggle, this violent kicking inside her. She was deeply troubled by it.
So she sought answers.
Yes, she went to what the texts call the house of God to speak with a wise man, Rabbi Shim.
And what did he tell her?
He revealed the prophecy. 2 children in her womb, 2 future nations. And crucially, the younger would eventually dominate the older. That struggle she felt, that was the beginning of their lifelong rivalry.
And so they're born, first Esau, hairy, reddish. His name means hairy.
And right behind him, Jacob, literally holding onto Esau's heel, hence his name, Jacob, heel grabber or supplanter.
Their birth really seemed to set the stage for their differences. Esau, the hunter, cunning, outdoorsy.
While Jacob was calm, preferred staying close to the tents, studying, more introspective,
Then comes another pivotal moment. Abraham dies. The twins are 15. Isaac is in mourning.
And Jacob, true to form, is at home. He cooks lentil stew for his grieving father. Round lentils, the sources note.
Why round?
As a symbol, life keeps going round, like a circle, even in grief. A comforting gesture.
And then Esau bursts in, starving from hunting.
Yeah, exhausted, sees the stew and just demands, give me some of that red stuff. I'm dying here.
And Jacob spots his chance, sees his brother's desperation.
Exactly. He says, basically, sure, sell me your birthright first.
And Esau, just thinking about his empty stomach, agrees.
He does. Swears an oath, trades his birthright for a bowl of stew, just like that.
It seems so impulsive, but the sources stress how huge this was. The birthright wasn't just about property.
Not at all. It was the spiritual leadership, the responsibility to carry on the covenant, the mission. Jacob wanted that deeply. Esau, in that moment, clearly didn't value it at all compared to immediate satisfaction.
It's a stark contrast, isn't it? Trading something profound and lasting for something fleeting makes you think about our own choices sometimes.
Definitely. So after this, life moves on. There's a famine, and Isaac has to move. He goes to Gerar.
But notably, he follows God's instruction not to go down to Egypt, like maybe others would have. He stays within the bounds of the Promised Land.
Right, and in Gerar, we see history kind of repeat itself. Isaac tells King Abimelech that Rebekah is his sister, worried about her safety again.
Like father, like son, eh? But Abimelech finds out they're married.
Yeah, apparently saw them being affectionate, but instead of trouble, they actually establish peace. Isaac and Abimelech make a treaty later at Beersheba.
And Isaac does really well in Gerar, becomes very prosperous.
So much so that the Philistines get jealous, which leads to conflict, unfortunately.
Abimelech asks him to leave because he's become too powerful.
Exactly. And then there are disputes over water wells. The locals had filled in the wells Abraham had originally dug.
But Isaac doesn't just give up. He keeps moving, keeps facing conflict over these wells. And this is where we see his specific work, right?
Yes, the sources really highlight this. Isaac was a well digger. That was his business. He methodically reopened his father's wells.
It's more than just finding water, isn't it? It's symbolic.
Totally. It's about preserving that life source, that spiritual legacy Abraham established, ensuring it continued to flow. He wasn't the pioneer like Abraham or the dynamic traveler like Jacob, but he was the crucial preserver.
Okay, let's move to Isaac's later years. The sources say he became blind, vulnerable.
And this is when Esau tries to pull a fast one. He starts acting all pious around Isaac, asking these complex, tricky questions about religious law, like tithing salt and straw.
Things you wouldn't normally tithe.
Right, trying to seem like a scholar, thinking his father's blindness meant he couldn't see the deception.
But Isaac, even though blind, wasn't fooled.
The sources make a point of this. Physically blind, yes, but he had vision. He saw through Esau's act. Still, his heart's desire was to somehow bring Esau back, to restore him to God.
So, with this hope, Isaac plans to give Esau the firstborn blessing, the big one.
But Rebekah overhears, and she remembers the prophecy, the younger serving the older. She believes Jacob is the one destined for that blessing, especially since he bought the birthright fair and square, in her view.
So she steps in, cooks up a plan, literally.
Yeah, she helps Jacob disguise himself. Goat skins on his arms and neck to feel like hairy Esau, prepares Isaac's favorite meal, the kind Esau usually hunted.
It must have been such a tense moment. Isaac, blind, receiving Jacob.
You can feel it in the text. Isaac is confused, the voice. It sounds like Jacob. But the feel of the hands, the smell of the clothes, like Esau. He says that famous line, the voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau.
But ultimately the disguise, the food, it works. Isaac gives the blessing of Abraham, the covenant promise, to Jacob.
And just minutes later, Esau walks in, ready for his blessing. Finds out he's too late.
His reaction must have been intense.
Fury, heartbreak. He cries out, "Bless me too, Father." But Isaac can't take back the blessing already given. It's done.
And the immediate fallout is huge.
Yeah.
Jacob has to run for his life from Esau's anger.
Right. And this whole dramatic, messy event, born from deception, ironically kickstarts Jacob's own incredible journey of transformation.
It's interesting, too, how the sources explain Isaac's blindness. One idea is the smoke from his daughters-in-law's idol sacrifices.
Yes, Esau's wives. But it's also seen as, perhaps, part of the divine plan, enabling Jacob to receive the blessing without visual recognition, relying only on touch and taste.
So summing up Isaac's life overall, the sources paint him differently than Abraham or Jacob. Quieter, maybe, less travel, fewer big battles.
Absolutely. His strength was different. Not flashy action, but this calm absoluteness.
Yeah.
Steady faith. A man of principle, strong in his ways, one source says.
And reopening those wells really captures that, doesn't it? Maintaining, preserving the legacy.
Perfectly. It was his way of ensuring continuity.
And after Jacob fled, Isaac didn't see him for a long time.
22 years, according to the texts. A long separation.
But he did live to see Jacob return. And not just Jacob, but a whole family. 4 wives, children, the future 12 tribes of Israel.
Yeah, he saw the beginnings of that expansion. And he lived a remarkably long life himself, the longest of the 3 patriarchs.
Longer than Abraham and Jacob.
Yes, 180 years. Abraham lived to 175, Jacob to 147. So Isaac had that longevity.
And his final resting place is alongside his family.
In the cave of Machpelah in Hebron, buried with Abraham and Sarah, with Rebekah, and later Jacob and Leah joined them there, the ancestral tomb.
So we've really covered a lot in this deep dive. From that miraculous birth, the test on Moriah, the matchmaking saga, the twin rivalry, the quiet perseverance.
It's quite a life when you focus just on him. It offers a different lens on faith and strength than the more action-packed stories of his father and son.
Definitely more about endurance, wouldn't you say? And trust.
That seems to be the core takeaway from the sources. Isaac's strength wasn't in changing the world through grand gestures, but in his patience, his consistency, his deep, unwavering faith that God's plan was unfolding, even when things were tough or confusing or just plain unseen.
Which brings us to a final thought for you, listening. What can you take from that particular kind of strength, that quiet trust in an unfolding plan, even when you can't see the whole picture? Where might that kind of steady faith, that quiet perseverance, be relevant in your own life right now? Something to think about.